This is TWiT.
While we're on the subject of Apple and the privacy of their users, I thought it was interesting that during last week's CES, the Consumer Electronics Show, their chief privacy officer, Jane Horvath, confirmed that Apple is automatically and continuously scanning images being backed up to iCloud in order to ferret out any instances of child abuse. She explained that this was the way they were working to help fight child exploitation, as opposed to breaking encryption. And it is the case that there are some technologies. Microsoft has something called PhotoDNA, which is sort of a soft hashing process which makes this sort of thing possible. You know, we know, for example, that hashing is useful for determining the exact duplication of something without revealing what it is. And, you know, for example, all responsible websites are now using that for the password-based login. When the user first logs in, creates their account, establishes a password or changes the password, their password is hashed very strongly, and the strength keeps going up, the number of iterations. And there are, of course, memory hard ways of hashing that makes it much more difficult to accelerate hashing. But the point is that password is turned into something that is derived from the password, and that's what's stored. So that in order to check when the person relogs in, the same thing is done and the results are checked. So you could imagine this being done with images, where you would hash an image and then you could check for a duplicate image if the hashes of the images matched. And it turns out that for the past 12 years, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, the NCMEC, has been making available a large file of hash values for known child sexual abuse images. So one thing that lots of responsible large companies are doing is when images are uploaded, they hash them and then check them against this hash list of known abusive images to see if they get an exact match. Of course, the problem is, as we know about hashes, even if one pixel of an image were one shade darker, it would result in a hash having about half of its bits on average inverted. It's like, one bit changes and half the bits in the hash have a 50% probability of changing. That's what's cool about hashes. So you can't hash images in a useful fashion. What Microsoft came up with the so-called PhotoDNA is that the images are resized to a standard size, then color is pushed out, so they're turned into black and white, then it's broken into a grid, and some technology scans each region of pixels within each grid cell and uses an algorithm to generate a fingerprint for the edges that are seen within that cell. That ends up producing something which is intended to survive cropping and resizing and like recompressing and so forth, so that basically it produces it's still using a hash-like approach. Nothing of the actual content of the image survives, but it does produce a fingerprint such that sufficiently similar images should produce a collision and raise a red flag, and then probably that pops them to someone's attention who would then verify whether or not it looks like it's exploitive. And that's technology which lots of large companies, Microsoft, Google, Verizon, Twitter, Facebook, Yahoo, and so forth, are using in order to in order to basically make sure that they're not hosting abusive images inadvertently. So it is possible for Apple to be, as was said last week, making sure that they're not hosting such images while preserving the privacy of their users. So, I just think it's a cool technology.